This Soonerscoop.com video is streaming in crystal clear 4K resolution on YouTube thanks to Enjoy Vision in Oklahoma City. From the big plays to life's everyday moments, see it all in sharp focus with LASIK at Enjoy Vision. Enjoy Vision. This is where Soonerscoop LASIKs.
Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosevich, George Stoya here from the Soonerscoop.com studios on historic Campus Quarter. We will be joined by Josh McQuiston here shortly to kind of wrap everything up from Brent Venables football camp day 4 that finished up on Friday. We talked about a number of guys that certainly highlighted the Friday performer list. Got into kind of all of them. Cooper Hackett, Jaden O'Neal worked out. You missed a lot, George. How was the bachelor party? You're alive. I guess that means it was somewhat not successful, but
yeah, I am alive. It was still successful. Definitely tired though. It took a lot.
Well, you
out
should
of me.
be. You should be. How
big game tonight though?
Game 3 or
Game 4.
The game 4 viewing was okay down in Austin.
I mean, it was miserable for about 2 hours. In the last few minutes, it was incredible.
Some very serious, very
Bad
low
thoughts.
vibes during that game, but Thunder were able to get through. Game 5 coming up on Monday night in Oklahoma City. Before we bring in Josh, let us tell you about our good friends over at William & Lauren. As the official custom clothier of OU football, William & Lauren outfits your favorite OU players in custom suits that boost their confidence off the field to match their confidence on the field. Their perfectly tailored clothing ensures every Sooner stands out in comfort and style at prices that make luxury accessible. Visit William & Lauren in Oklahoma City, or you can do so in Tulsa now, or online at williamandlauren.com. That is williamandlauren.com. Dress like a champion and make your style as legendary as Oklahoma football. You'll be, I guess, presenting the suit to the public here not too long. Less than 30 days, right?
Excited. Yeah, 26 days, something like that.
Yeah,
it's coming quick.
You better know how many days you have left.
Yeah.
All right.
But I'm excited.
No, it's going to be good. It's going to be great. Visit our good friends over at William & Lauren. They've been with us for basically the entire season and now into another season.
They're taking care of my dad right now.
Oh, very good.
He's getting a new suit.
Is he down in Tulsa? Or
down in the Tulsa
area?
area.
The Tulsa location.
Yeah, he said it's been awesome.
Very good. The great Sam Stoya getting suited up. All right, we will now bring in Josh McQuiston, who was in Norman for Thursday and Friday's happenings at Brent Venables football camp. We talked about Thursday. Obviously, you can go back and see the show here on the Soonerscoop.com YouTube channel. You can do the same for the Friday happenings. And this is a little bit of more of a cleanup from Friday because it was a pretty packed camp. It was a good camp on Friday. It's definitely headlined by Jalen Brewster and Callan Hall, Jaden O'Neal through, but plenty of names to get through, and we kind of teased it on Friday. Josh, happy Monday, first off. Big Thunder game tonight.
Yeah, guys, not nervous at all. I'm like you guys. Game 4 was just such a breeze and so comfortable. Why would you feel weird at all about Game 5?
I'm not nervous. That's the problem, and I think I will be once we get to 7:30.
Once it tips off.
Yeah, once we get it'll be well before the tip. It'll be probably 4:30, 5 o'clock when I start psyching myself out into thunder psychosis, which is not a bad place to be when you're sick mentally like me. Anyhow, let's get into everything that is for the recruiting report today, Josh. And I figured we might as well start with one of the youngest guys in the group on Friday. 2029 offensive tackle Jax Wilkerson out of Midwest City, Carl Albert, Oklahoma, the son of the late Jimmy Wilkerson, who unfortunately passed away, but certainly going to be somebody that we talk about for quite a while here over the next 4 years as he begins his freshman season over at Carl Albert.
Yeah, Eddie, this is one of those ones that happens at camp every once in a while where you're like, I should have known who that was. So he's sitting over there, and you see him with this group of young guys, and like he sticks out, and he's kind of with Cooper Hackett's group, and you're like, that's the only guy over there. Like I mean, in any age group that you're like, he looks like Cooper Hackett, and you're like, who the heck is this guy? We got to figure this out. And then finally, one of our guys walks over and is like, "That's and he goes, and he didn't know the guy. He didn't really know the name. He's like, Jax Wilkerson. And I was like, oh, Lord. Like, and then you're just kind of like, okay, yeah, it all makes sense. And I can't get over, like, the stuff you're going to see here, you're going to be like, oh, well, that doesn't, that doesn't excite me. This guy's a freshman in high school. He doesn't have a clue what he's doing. Like, I mean, I talk about that all the time about, like, sophomores and juniors. This guy just finished middle school football. He doesn't know anything. It's
incredible.
And his size, like Eddie, he's legitimately 6'6", 6'7". He is an enormous young guy. And you're just like, once it all starts to come together and he grows into that body a little bit, he's got a chance to be another elite, offensive line prospect in Oklahoma.
Certainly one of those guys, when you see him, it's just hard to imagine that he was playing 8th grade football a year ago, Josh, and knowing, kind of his bloodline and knowing how good Jimmy Wilkerson was, obviously he had his time at Oklahoma and then in the National Football League. It's kind of when, we obviously know that Cooper Hackett is extremely talented. We talk about him going into his 2027 season or into his senior season in 2027. When you see Jax Wilkerson, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't be the one to throw this out there, Josh, but certainly seems like he's going to be one of those guys that, from a national perspective in 2029, he could be in that top 5, nationally, top 5 national player overall going into his senior year or by the time he gets there.
He's one of those guys where I could see him being in that conversation you're talking about, Eddie, or he could be a 3-star. There's so much variation in where he could end up because of the physical tools are so obviously there, but we don't know what he's going to do. And again, being Jimmy's son, and I know, I was talking about it at camp, I know that kid's tough. I know he's tough-minded because Jimmy was not a guy – I don't want to make it sound like he was a mean guy or that, but Jimmy wasn't one to mince words. He kind of told you what he was thinking, and I would think he was probably that way with Jax as well. So I'm gonna guess this is a guy that knows where he needs to get better, knows where he needs to improve on, and he's just gonna work on that stuff. You could see it in that clip we were just running where Kevin Wilson's just telling him flat back, have your back flat, don't cross your feet, basic stuff that a sophomore, junior knows, but an 8th grader has no idea about. He's just getting by on natural ability to this point in his life. So, again, I almost want to tell people, when you watch that video, close your eyes. Don't eat, it's not anything to do with the player he's going to be in 3 years. He's just a young guy, and you're getting to watch video of a player that you rarely would see because we don't focus on 8th graders going into their freshman year very often.
Josh, how much do you think he'll play as a freshman?
I think he's definitely going to have a role. I think it's going to come down to how quickly can he pick stuff up. I know Carl Albert graduated quite a bit last year. We were having that conversation last year about, Carl Albert had won it a couple of years ago, and then, they return all these pieces, and then I think actually I may be a year behind. I know they returned a lot going into Xavier Robinson senior year, and now I'm trying to remember if maybe I've got that off a little bit. But either way, he's 6'7", he's 260 pounds. And guys, the thing that Eddie and I both noted, he's bigger in the lower body than Cooper Hackett is right now. He's bigger from the waist down, so he's a big kid already. And if he can figure it out, you don't keep that kid off the field. He's gonna play, but it's Carl Albert. They don't have to rush him. That's one of the really good things for him. Is he doesn't have to be, we can't wait to get him out there. He's got to be the guy, and, it kind of is a trial by fire. They can let him grow into it, and then probably by the playoffs, he's starting to, the light is starting to come on for him.
I don't think it would hurt Coach Dunn's feelings if they could throw him out there for 12 games this next season, even if he is a freshman. Should note, Jax Wilkerson, he did not pick up an offer in Norman on Saturday or on Friday. He did pick up his first offer, though, and that was after camping at Oklahoma State on Saturday afternoon. So the offers are going to come. I would imagine eventually Oklahoma is going to be one of those schools that dips their toe in the ring there for Jax Wilkerson. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but I would imagine he's going to be a guy that Oklahoma ends up offering before, too long.
I would guess a year from now we're having that conversation. I would guess that's what that looks like. And again, guys, you think about it in the time that, Bill Bedenbaugh's been in Oklahoma, there's only 2 guys that have been offered in that sort of range. And I'm talking about a year from now on Jax's timeline.
Sure.
And that's Andrew Rame and that's Bray Walker.
Wow.
Nobody, there's never been an in-state offensive lineman that's been offered this early in his recruitment. So, don't think that means OU doesn't like Jax Wilkerson. There's just a method to this.
No doubt about it. All right, we're going to stay in state here for a little bit because obviously the 2027 class is extremely talented. 28 looks like it has the makings, and even 29 with Jax Wilkerson has the makings of a pretty special class. But here more locally, just up the street at Norman North High School, Ben Kolar picked up an offer after camping on Friday, Josh. The 2027 tight end, 6'3", 220 out of Norman North, younger brother of Charlie and John Kolar that have obviously played Division I football. Charlie, I think, still bouncing around in the National Football League. Was he still with the Ravens? Is it still Ravens?
Maybe.
Okay, he was last year.
Yeah.
Either way, John Kolar now, his, recruitment journey officially has begun in Oklahoma, offered after a pretty impressive afternoon on Friday, Josh.
Yeah, and
Damn
speaking
it,
to
Ben
the Charlie
Kolar.
Kolar.
I'm going to do this a lot. I apologize to the Kolar family. We're going to say Ben, Charlie, and John from here on out. Just know that I'm talking about Ben if we're talking high school recruiting.
So, and I will say what was interesting is I just happened to be well located during the 40 testing on Friday, and the first guy to talk to Ben was Jim Nagy. And he was like, oh, man, I had, and he wasn't sure if Ben knew who he was. And he's like, Jim Nagy, Senior Bowl, I had Charlie down there a couple years ago, blah, blah, blah. And so, there was a kind of an instant, they had some connection and something to talk about. And so, and it was also obvious that Nagy was very aware of Ben Kolar and wanted to get a look at him. So, again, when I saw him a couple of weeks ago at the Edmond Santa Fe team camp, I saw all the stuff you see on tape, guys. He's really multifaceted. He catches the ball well. He's a good athlete. He is a guy that, you don't see it in the camp, but you can see it on tape. Like, he's a blocker. He'll do all the little stuff you need him to do to be a quality player. I wondered if maybe he would get knocked a little bit for his size, because he's right at about 6'3". He's not the 6'5", 6'6" guy that we've seen, some of the guys that are prominently recruited at tight end. So I didn't know, and it seemed like that was not a problem. Oklahoma, he tested really well. Like I said, I was right there when he ran the 40, that he put up a good number. He caught Oklahoma's attention with that. So I like this. And this 2027 class, I mean, guys, this is one of 3 in-state offers we're going to talk about just from Friday. I keep saying how good this class is, and then you see another guy in person, and you're like, it's still better than I thought it was.
Josh, maybe a weird question, but when you talk about the Kolar family, and obviously John and Charlie didn't play at Oklahoma, are there any weird feelings there? I know that's maybe a weird question. I'm sure there's not, but is there anything there where it's like, they overlooked maybe John and Charlie back in the day, and now obviously it seems like they're in early with a guy like Ben?
Talking to Ben, I mean, obviously I can't speak for Charlie and John and those kind of, and their parents, but my impression from Ben is no. I kind of asked him, and he gave a great quote. He goes, the only time I ever rooted against Oklahoma was against Iowa State and Oklahoma State. So you're like, okay, that's fair enough. You're rooting for your brothers. So I think that is kind of where it's at. Ben's never said it directly, but I think there's still a lot of love for Oklahoma in that house. I think that's I remember talking to John. I remember talking to Charlie. They were OU fans. There was no question about that. Sometimes in Norman, you get these guys that maybe didn't grow up OU fans or wanted to be different or whatever. That wasn't these guys. They loved OU. They had a lot of interest there. So I don't think to their credit, I don't think they let it become like a bad thing. They just went to Oklahoma State and Iowa State, and they loved those programs and had a great time there.
It would seem that Norman North might, low-key, have a pretty damn good offense this next season. Nash Henry, we talked about him camping down in Norman. Mason James commits to Washington at the end of last week. And then obviously they got a couple of offensive linemen, Daniel McMorris, currently committed to Minnesota as well.
Breaking news on the show here. I believe Oklahoma just picked up a commitment in the 2026 class.
Well, that's perfect.
Yeah. Deven Walker? Deven?
Mm-hmm. I think it's Deven.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, running back that was their lone official visitor last weekend. So congrats to Oklahoma, literally batting 1,000 from their official visit weekend.
No doubt about it. Do we want to just keep rolling on? We can.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
that's
throw the show off the rails. I was
that's-
like, this is the recruiting report.
This is a recruiting report. All right, we'll be back. Welcome back. A little bit of a timeout there, but had a little bit of breaking news for the Oklahoma 2026 class, which, I guess is good news. They hosted Deven Walker over the weekend, Josh, and in the post-light of the visit here on Monday afternoon, he ends up committing to Oklahoma. Just in terms of what this means for Oklahoma's 2026 class, now up to 11 commitments on the class, and certainly you had to go out and you had to get a running back to replace somebody like a Jonathan Hatton, who was committed and then obviously decommitted a couple months ago.
Yeah, this is a guy that Oklahoma offered fairly recently. I mean, they clearly had kind of pivoted in some of their some of their focus from the Jonathan Hatton situation, and kind of, to a lesser degree, as they kind of decided Caden Jones may not be part of the plan, that kind of thing. So, there was a lot of movement, and this was one of two guys that I kind of thought they had kind of earmarked as kind of focuses. The other is Ryan Estrada, which is really interesting because Ryan Estrada, I believe, was supposed to be starting his official today on Monday. So does that still go forward? I don't know what that looks like. So this is all happening kind of on top of each other. So we're going to have to figure out what that all means. But as we understand it now, I expect this to be the lone running back commitment in this class. I think that's what they'll move forward with. Guy that brings some good size. He's listed at, I think it's 6 foot, 5'10", 180s. But when you look at him, he looks a little bigger than that to me on tape. So I'd be kind of interested to see where he's at now. But shows some speed, shows some versatility. Again, I won't say that I haven't had a chance to watch this kid in person, so there's some questions I still have. But this was a key position. Oklahoma needed an answer. They needed somebody in this class. And this is a guy that has some good offers. Honestly, guys, if Notre Dame hadn't landed a commitment about a month ago, this might have been an OU Notre Dame battle, and that's the kind of stuff you're looking for. Those are the battles OU needs to be in. So I think it says something that this is a guy that Notre Dame was pursuing, was very active with before, they landed a different player. So I think this is, like I said, I realize the ranking won't get everybody excited, but this is a good, solid player, another kind of good evaluation from the staff.
And as you kind of filled me in here during the break when we were learning more about him, Ray Moore Peculiar out of Missouri, Ray Peck, I believe is what you termed it as or described it as, a really good program up there in Missouri in the Show Me State.
Absolutely. I mean, they produced plenty of good players. I'm trying to remember the guy last year that was a big-time tight end recruit, and I'm just absolutely blanking on the kid's name. But, Jaden Riddell, it was 2 years ago, actually signed with Georgia. So top 75 player in the country. So
works.
Yeah. So they have talent at Ray Peck. There's no question about it. So, again, this is – guys – I think it also is Oklahoma continuing to have a presence in that Kansas and Missouri area, which is something that I think is an underrated, important thing for Oklahoma, because you look back through the years, whether it's guys like Brody Eldridge and Geno Grissom out of Kansas, you go to Missouri, guys, they're hoping PJ Adebawore is going to make them look really smart from Missouri. So there are a lot of guys through the last 20 years from that area of the country that have really helped Oklahoma. So I think it's good to kind of keep that pipeline is probably strong, but to keep those relationships in those states going where you can go in there and continue to recruit big-time guys.
Shout out Tyler Evans, another Missouri product that I have always enjoyed, going all the way back to his days in Norman.
I was just going to say, Josh answered every question I usually throw at him.
Okay.
Because I was going to ask, is he going to be the only running back commitment in this class? And it sounds like that is the case.
Interesting. That kind of tells me you did drugs and you ruined your brain cells over the weekend on your bachelor party.
There's a chance of that.
All right, very good. Well, okay. I wouldn't admit that on public television, but there you go.
You do every day.
Well,
again,
that's, to be fair, true. We move on. Let's stay in state. As we were talking about Ben Kolar, he picked up the offer on Friday from Oklahoma after camping with the Sooners. Another player that did so was over in the linebacker group. Colton Mcomes, the younger brother of Deven Mcomes, the quarterback out of Edmond Memorial, ended up signing with Kansas this last cycle. Colton Mcomes, though, 2027 product, certainly looks the part, Josh. Josh. Very intrigued by Colton Mcomes.
Yeah, and Eddie, I just know because this can get in your head. It's just McComb. It's just singular.
God bless it.
It's okay.
Well, it's the McCombs family. How about that?
It's the summer. Yeah, we're and I honestly, Eddie, I did you a disservice there. I could have helped you because I was going to start off with the McCombs family could be a thing at Oklahoma. I think if David McComb, his older brother, who is signed with Kansas, is I think already enrolled up there this spring. If he would have had a little more interest, I'm not sure Oklahoma doesn't look in his direction at quarterback in the 2025 class. So, for those that didn't know, that's his older brother at Memorial, really good quarterback. Colton is a guy, I actually had talked to his dad earlier this spring, and I had a few people kind of reach out like, this guy's not on your watch list for the 27 class. And I said, well, no, I just haven't seen enough. Seeing him live, you're like, okay, yeah, all questions answered. I mean, he is 6'1", maybe a little more, maybe 6'2", probably like 205, 210. And guys, I'm just going to tell you, I could hear the call when he ran the 40. He ran a hell of a 40. So for a linebacker like that to move like that, this is not going to be his last major offer. He's going to get plenty of attention. There are going to be plenty of schools involved. But again, this is a kid, I'm going to steal George's thunder here a little bit. So, George, start thinking of your other question. But this is a kid from California originally. He moved out with his family. I think going into David's sophomore year, if I remember correctly.
I think that's right, Josh.
So this isn't a guy that grew up in Oklahoma and inundated with OU stuff. OU wants him. That's fine. They've got a chance here, but they're going to have to go get him.
I was just about to ask, Josh, how big of a priority is he being from right down the road and at a program like Edmond Memorial?
Well, guys, I mean, we're getting to a point where like half of Oklahoma's 27 class may be in state, and that may not be a bad thing at all.
Sure.
Because of the guys they keep finding. Again, we still haven't hit the bottom of the well on the 2027 in-state offers from camp on Friday. So there's a very real world where, and I think, again, when you can start to build that momentum in state, if you can land those first couple of commitments, maybe even like a really high-profile guy, whether it's a Cooper Hackett or a Caden Penny or a Titus Hawk, whoever it might be, if you can get one of those big-time guys reeled in early, it's kind of you can get a little momentum, kind of start a domino effect where those guys like, yeah, man, let's all in-state guys, we're all going to go play together, and they tell themselves whether they're going to tell we're going to go win a natty or whatever it may be. You kind of get that conversation started. So I would think this is going to be a priority guy because, again, this is not just an in-state overachiever guy. Like, that's not what you're getting here. This is a really good athlete that I thought looked really good on Friday.
What's just kind of off topic here, what's the most Oklahoma kids they've ever taken in a class?
Ooh.
Not I guess not ever, because I'm sure back in the day they took a ton of kids, but
yeah.
In the last 20-some years.
I would say, again, and this is always my litmus test of 2006, the McCoy and Gresham and Bradford class. I want to say that year was, I for some reason, I don't want to say 10. I want to say 9 or 11, and I can't remember which one it was.
Josh, I was kind of thinking.
I want to say it's 11.
I was going to say 11 with Justin Broyles and Trey Brown and that group of guys. Would that have been right, or am I misremembering that as well?
No. Oh, you're talking about that 17 class with that
God,
crew?
was that 17?
You thought that was 2011?
Yeah, that feels like Justin Broyles was here since 2011 or 2011.
Well, then that would have been 17.
Okay, God bless.
That was a big class.
When I'm saying 9 or 11, Eddie, I'm saying the number of players was either 9 or 11 in that in-state class in 2006.
I got you. Okay.
It was, again, I could almost get like Chad Roark was part of that class. God, I won't bore everybody.
Well, Josh, I guess my question is, do you think that this 27 class, and I know it's early and they're still finishing up the 26 class and there's a lot to come with that, but it just feels like as you go through and there's more guys here in the 27 class we'll get to, that in-state, this not only could be one of the more talented ones, but in terms of just quality of depth, there's a lot of guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, George, because I remember, in 2006 being like, oh, this class is really good, and there's pretty good depth here. Like, again, guys, like, I mean, an afterthought of that group was Dom Franks, who was a multi-year starter and played in the NFL for a while, and he was kind of like and I don't mean that to be any shot at Dom, just he wasn't the frontline premier guy that everybody knew. And, as I look at it now, I mean, guys, there's a lot of guys in this class that you're like, okay, like there's some really, really high-end stuff there. I think they've got, it's like 11 or 12 in-state offers right now. So, I mean, that potential is absolutely there. And I wish I had the exact number. I should have had that ready. But guys, like, a perfect example, Samaj Stanford. Nobody's talking about Samaj Stanford. 9 years out of 10, Samaj Stanford's the number one prospect in Oklahoma, and there's no question about it.
Sure.
So for him to be third, fourth, fifth, it says a lot about where the depth is in Oklahoma right now. Where this is just, again, it's going to be a historic year, and I feel really smart because, guys, we've been talking about that for 6 months now. How good that group was going to be.
8 prospects or 8 signees from 2006 were from the state of Oklahoma. Okay. Real quick, just to entertain me, and this thing keeps going off. I don't know what it's doing here.
It's Carrie's iPad. Classic.
It's domestic terrorism is what it is. Gerald McCoy. Okay. Jermaine Gresham. Then you move down to Sam Bradford. Shout out one time, Putnam City North. No big deal. And then here's some names that I had kind of forgotten about. We just talked about Dom Franks. Chase Beeler, Moses Madu out of Norman, Chad Rourke, and then there was one more I thought, or maybe that was it. Oh, one more, Josh. Can you think of who it is? It was
Is there any hint?
It was I would consider it one of those big names in high school recruiting at the time. A la kind of we could compare, like Dalton Wood would be a similar comparison to this player.
Wow.
We'll say this would be the hint, Southwest Oklahoma. We've talked about him before.
Would it be Larry Burdine?
No.
Right?
No, Larry.
That would have been after Larry Burdine.
I think Larry was like 2002, 2003.
Yeah.
Does Altus, Oklahoma do anything for you?
Oh, wow. Daniel Tabin.
Tabin.
That one, I deserve crap for not remembering. Like, again, I can remember Daniel's recruitment is one I have a lot of vivid memories of. Sitting in the office at the Altus coaching, at their football offices. And, like, basically Altus asked me to read Daniel the Riot Act. Like, tell him what he could be if he'll just stop messing around.
Yeah.
And Daniel just couldn't get out of his own way.
Definitely one of those got in his own way type of situations.
Like he played that year 5A. Altus, Southeast, and Ardmore were in the same district. So in the same district, you had Tabin, Gerald McCoy, and Jermaine Gresham all playing against each other in 5A football, which is just insane.
That's unbelievable. 2006. Well, maybe the 2027 group, as we've made a runway for them, can live up to the hype. Another 2027 prospect that picked up an offer on Friday was somebody that we had talked about, and you had mentioned at the end of last week going into Friday, Josh, and that is Gabriel Osborne out of Mustang, Oklahoma, previously of Putnam City High School, made the transfer over to Mustang. Seems like Mustang's going to be kind of one of those teams alongside Norman North in terms of they're headed in the right direction on the west side of the state. But Daniel Osborne, we saw him a little bit in the one-on-one session on Friday afternoon, certainly did enough as he also picked up an offer from the Oklahoma coaching staff, his first SEC offer at that.
Yeah, the last time I saw Gabe, again, and it was more of, I was at Putnam City, talking to our old buddy Willis Alexander, and he's like, watch that little freshman. He's going to be really, like, they knew they had something really early with him. So, but again, that was so long ago. And then to see him on Friday, I mean, the length, the speed, and this is a guy, Eddie, I was talking to you about it. This isn't someone who's been to all these camps. Mm-hmm. He's not a guy that, he basically plays football where he plays football. He plays basketball. He does some AAU stuff. Apparently a very good basketball player from what I've gathered. And and is a guy that just has no knowledge of like how these things work. And you can tell those kind of guys, like you can tell it whether they're a defensive lineman, offensive lineman. Like camp is just, I say it all the time, but it's a different kind of football. It's not always as comparable as I think the average person that's never been to one would really think it is. So I thought he did really well. He showed some makeup speed. There was some stuff he got beat on. He just did. But then you would watch, like there was one, he gets beaten on kind of a post route, but he's so long and so fast, and the quarterback underthrows it by just a little. He makes the comeback and he breaks up the pass, or he fought through another one where the ball had been completed and he knocked it out of the receiver's hands kind of as the play was wrapping up. So, again, I think he impressed Oklahoma with his competitiveness, his athleticism. He's every bit of 6'1". He's a big, long guy. Played a lot of safety at Putnam City. Played corner at the camp on Friday. I think that's probably where he's most likely to fit. But, again, just a guy with a lot of potential. You know, right now he's not going to be like some of these guys where you just watch him just dominate. Like it's not going to be as obvious to everyone, but I think he's got a lot of upside.
You certainly don't want to fall in love with a guy that's getting his ass beat every rep, right? But there is something to be said for some of these guys that when they do get beat, they make up the noticeable ground and end up with a PBU or end up making somebody make a competitive catch. Those are kind of the things that you can kind of take out of the one-on-one sessions without putting a whole lot of stock into it. Certainly going to be interesting for Gabriel Osborne now that he's picked up an Oklahoma offer, puts his hat into the ring for Oklahoma services, or I guess vice versa. Let's stay at the quarterback position. Somebody that Oklahoma's been on for quite a while now, 2027 Lakeview Centennial cornerback Montre Jackson, and somebody, Josh, that you had wrote on Soonerscoop.com with the full breakdown from Friday and all the defensive stars. Certainly somebody that has kind of jumped up to the front of that group when you're talking about 2027 cornerback offers.
I think Montre Jackson's one of the best corners in the country. Every time I watch the kid, he's just unbelievably good. You know, again, like when you look at him, the frame is unreal. He's super long. You can see him here in this video with Jay Valai. And he is a guy that can close. He can, again, like there's not a lot of holes in his game for a player so young. And again, I want to say it. I'll say it every time we run one of these clips. I hate that first route at a camp. I hate it so much. It's just wildly unfair to a corner because there's no linebacker over the middle where they should be. But yeah, so I mean, you're watching him here. That first clip was him against Brody Knowles, the wide receiver offer that was there from South Lake Carroll. You know, he's, for a guy going into his junior year of high school, we've seen a ton of him. I've rarely ever come away and not been super impressed. Yeah, this is the route I'm talking about. I just hate that. That's playing dirty in my opinion. But here's him against Brody Knowles. Just like again, maybe there's a flag in a real game, but again, you're just trying to let him be the athlete he is, make the plays he is. You want him to get his head around right here and not grab. But I have nothing but belief in what Montre Jackson can be because he's a kid that goes to a lot of camps. He likes to compete. I just like the entire makeup of his game.
Josh, do you expect him to be a pretty highly recruited guy? I know, coming from the state of Texas, it looks like he's got a ton of in-state offers there.
We've got him, On Three has got him at like 265, and he's like 115 nationally or whatever. Guys, I think he's a top 100 player. Like, I think Montre Jackson's really good. I'm a full buyer on him. So, and that happens sometimes. Like, I like the guys at On Three a lot. I think they've got great eyes. Like, it's not what are they doing? I just happen to disagree with them on this player. But I like Montre a lot. And again, I do, George. I would expect him to have, like, when he's taking his official visits, if you told me it's OU, Texas, Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia, like you name the suspects, it wouldn't shock me at all. But I will say, because George, I know you pivoted to a slightly different question there, but I think Oklahoma will absolutely be very involved. Like this is, I think, his 6th, 7th trip to Oklahoma. He really likes Jay Valai. There seems to be a really good relationship there.
Good news, continued good news for Oklahoma on the defensive side of the ball. We told you this was going to be a little bit of a recap from everything that went down on Friday, so let's go all the way back into Friday a.m. We talked about, the big guys, Jalen Brewster, Kellen Hall, Cooper Hackett, Luke Wilson, who also picked up an Oklahoma offer. There was another offensive lineman there out of Lake Charles, Louisiana, 2027 offensive tackle Albert Simeon, that also had a good morning, Josh.
Yeah, only showed up. He showed up kind of late, and we'd heard somebody say like, "Oh, there's this guy, and he's a little late." The first thing, we're kind of standing in one-on-ones. It's the first time I even noticed he was there. And I hear Taylor Wine go, "Look at those things." And I didn't know what he was saying. And he walks over to Albert Simeon and he goes, "How big are your feet, man?" And he was like, "They're 18s." And you're like, "Oh, my Lord." And this is just a big old dude. Like I said, very, very highly regarded guy. I think had picked up an A&M offer like 2 days before this. So he's been making the camp rounds. And here he is, fighting the Malo kid, Troy, out of Denver Mullen, that also picked up an offer that I think we talked about on Friday.
We did.
And again, just keeping a good base. And you can see him cross over his feet. I know, I'm always so torn when I talk about some of this stuff because I know the O-line junkies out there are like, well, this is wrong. This isn't right. But just look at the movement skills. Look, the nice flat back. He's bending his knees. There's all this stuff where you're like, yeah, he'll be fine. He just got to learn it. But there's clearly a lot of talent there. What is interesting is I know some kind of like him on the inside. And I would have liked to seen him work, against a guy like Jalen Brewster or against a guy like Kellen Hall, where you could get a little more feel for what he looks like when he's facing kind of more of not a bull rush, because you don't want to do that in a camp setting, but that kind of maneuver where it's a little more physical.
He definitely looks like a guard to me, Josh. I mean, he could probably play tackle, but
yeah,
I don't know, 6'3", 265.
Again, stick those size 18s in the ground and try to move that dude. He's got a couple of wood sticks on his feet, man. That's wood sticks. Where did that? I don't know where that came from. I want that
Sounds
back.
like something I would say.
He also recently, I think, got an Alabama offer as well.
Okay, well then he's well on his way, I would say. We will hear more from Albert Simeon, I'm sure, at some point as his recruitment ticks up, just going into his junior season, like a number of these guys that we have already discussed here on the recruiting report today, as well as the ones that we talked about in the last couple coming out of Thursday and Friday, day 3 and day 4 at Brent Venables football camp. A couple more names to get through. We'll go back to the linebacker position. Seemed like Nate Dreiling had a really good group there on Friday afternoon. Another one of those guys, and Josh, forgive me, I've literally never heard of this high school in the state of Georgia. Rabun Gap Nakahuchi? Never heard of it, but that is where Jay Shell goes to high school, a 2028 prospect that also picked up an offer on on Friday.
Yeah, Eddie, I feel like we've been waiting for that day of linebackers to show up, and they all just showed up at once.
Sure.
It was just one day where we just got inundated with 3 new linebacker offers that day. But kind of different from the other 2 guys, one of which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But Jay Shell, big, long guy. You can see it right here. That's probably all of 6'3" and 210. And again, you could tell from pretty early on, Nate Dreiling was paying him special attention. And Rabun Gap, I would not say I'm as familiar with its talent production, but it's definitely a program where there have been FBS guys come out of that program. I know there have been because, frankly, I've heard of it, and it's in Georgia, and I wouldn't have heard of it otherwise. So, but again, really, I think it showed what I liked that I got out of that, and again, watching Nate Dreiling work with him a little bit was just kind of the feel of they're not stuck to you've got to be this guy. You've got to be this body type or this type of player to play here or to play for Nate Dreiling. That's not the impression I get at all. He seems very much into, can you do these things and I'll make the rest of it kind of work.
He kind of seems like one of those guys, Josh, that we see him now as he's going into his sophomore season, just being a 2028 guy, that kind of that baby face. And I feel like we're going to see him in 3 years when he's going to his senior year, or I guess 2 years from now. And you're going to be like, oh my God, this is what he's turned out to be. He just looks like somebody with a frame that is only going to get bigger as he continues to mature.
There's a, for the people watching of my age range, there's going to be a lot of people like, who the hell is he talking about? There's a Drago feel to him. He's going to be the guy from Rocky IV that is just oh man, that's a monster. And I will say, guys, I didn't see the guy I'm about to reference at the same age, But I'm going to bet that's not that different than what Danny Stutzman looked like at the same age. Like that same kind of big, long, kind of lean, and then all of a sudden he gets into a weight program and just explodes.
No doubt about it.
If he does, he does.
Thank you for the. I assume that's
George.
a Rocky reference.
Yeah, it's one of my all-time favorite movies, Rocky IV.
Thank you for that. We needed it.
Yeah.
I've only seen the. I don't think I've seen all the Rockies. That might not
Rocky
be too
IV, man.
surprising.
He brought
Four's
world
the
peace.
one?
He brought world peace.
Well, get him overseas. Probably
Rocky
need that.
did. He settled the Cold War.
Yeah, he did.
Oh.
Single-handedly.
I missed that part, and that's why we're overdoing all the curriculum in the state of Oklahoma right now. All right, 2028, we will stay at the linebacker position. Another name that personally for me, from a video standpoint, slipped through the cracks on Friday, hand up, Kaden Buchanan out of Aberdeen, Mississippi, Tupelo High School. Certainly somebody, when you're talking about 2028, he's kind of in that same class as Jay Shell, that I think the best is yet to come for him as he really kind of embarks on the start of his high school season, or the high school career, if you will, Josh.
Yeah, this is a guy that's still, just kind of scratching the surface of what he's going to be. And I know that's so obvious and such an easy thing to say, but I will say, for those who may go look for huddle tape or whatever, because again, kind of like Eddie, I saw a little bit of him. I saw Jay Shell. I saw Colton Mcomes. I didn't see enough of Kaden Buchanan. It's a hand up. I missed. And for those that go look for his huddle tape, this is a kid that actually transferred to Tupelo. He spent his freshman year at Aberdeen High School, and then has moved over to Tupelo. So if that confuses you, yeah,
that was going to be one of my questions. Is Tupelo it's Tupelo, Mississippi, not the place that I've always thought about Tupelo, Mississippi to be? I thought it was a town.
Yes, you were absolutely right. So,
okay,
again,
we drove through it.
That is the confusion. But yeah, again, a really good athlete, a kid that I've talked to since the offer. Incredibly excited about the offer. He really dug the soul mission. He liked, and I kind of was like, really? They got to show it to you. And he was like, well, they kind of walked me through it, and I talked to a couple people. And I think he just loved the idea of it. And again, young guy, they can very much, they haven't seen it all before. So everything's kind of new and oh, that's amazing. But, he's already talking. He and Jay Shell both, I should mention Jay as well, both talking about coming back this fall for a game. So, obviously Oklahoma laying some good groundwork there.
OU doesn't go into Mississippi very often, it feels like.
No. And that's I think I talked about that in something I wrote about Kaden Buchanan. It's all been a bit of a blur over the last week, but this for all of this. For all of the talent that is in Mississippi, and it is deep. There is a lot. Coaches will tell you, and I mean coaches that have recruited in tough areas before. Mississippi's tricky to recruit in because there's a lot of big coaches I want this kid to go to Mississippi State, or I want this guy to go to Ole Miss. And there's a lot of power within the high school coaching ranks and kind of how that plays.
That's interesting.
So I think I think as time is going on, like everywhere else in the country, it's lessening. But for a long time, that was a really, really tough battle for schools to fight. And I know, a few years ago, going over to Mississippi to watch Jarian Jones, the safety that was committed to Oklahoma, back in the the DB Kerry Cooks in that era, and OU lost him. So it's just tough to recruit in the state of Mississippi sometimes.
It was one of those, I thought, if I remember correctly, back in the day when the JUCO stranglehold on the state of Mississippi, it was they go to a Mississippi JUCO school, you might as well just say goodbye to them because they're never going to come out. They're either going to end up in Oxford or they're going to end up at Starkville.
Well, that's the last chance you, right? Was in Mississippi.
Yeah, with Buddy,
Yep.
whatever his name was, the
Yeah.
big guy, right?
Yeah.
That was one of the good ones. And then we got Coach JP or whatever.
I am verifying one name that I know OU fans will know that I want to make sure was LaColton Bester.
Yes.
I'm almost certain.
He was a Mississippi JUCO product,
Is
I
it-
believe.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember if he's East Mississippi or not.
This is not a JUCO, but isn't Isaiah Autry-Dent from Mississippi?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just like his like his uncle Marcus Dupree, right?
Yes.
Or
Correct.
uncle, nephew, whatever. We got it. Taking many trips down memory lane today, and
we should
good,
have
some
like
bad.
a recruiting report trivia show where we just ask Josh like history questions of different recruiting classes.
Yeah, I think so.
Just throwing names out
I'd
there.
require like one of every three to be like somewhere between 2000 and 2012. That's really my like. As I got older, and you can almost earmark it when I first had a child, it wanes on me a little bit. Like I don't remember things from like 2013 to 2017 in the way that I do somehow like 2003.
Well, I tried to put Trey Brown into a class that he was probably in grade school. So, I'm right there along with you, and I don't have kids. I have no excuse for that. All right, in light of the Deven Walker news, we will still continue to talk about running backs, and there were two out there on Friday that I thought we should make note of. We'll start locally with 2027 running back Delijah Matthews out of Carl Albert, somebody that Jax Wilkerson will probably be blocking for here over the next couple years, as well as Jeremiah Tabor out of Melissa High School down in the, North DFW area. Same school responsible for Nigel Smith, who's actually looking really good. I know Josh and I talked about it, but both those guys were out there on Friday afternoon, Josh, and I thought, if nothing else, we could make note of both of these guys as you'll see them here on the screen.
Yeah, with Delijah, a guy already holds a North Texas offer. UNT does a great job in state led by Patrick Cobbs, who's recruited, former Oklahoma product, recruits the hell out of the state, always has. Couple of big guys. I mean, like there's no question. Like you knew who this is.
This is the Tabor
Delijah,
kid, Jeremiah
right?
Tabor kid.
This is Tabor. You're right. This is Tabor right here, and you go watch his tape, and you're like, "Yep, that looks right." Because he is a big physical dude that just wants to run over everybody. Delijah, like I said, you can see him here. A kind of more of a multifaceted athlete, because there was even some conversation of like, is he going to be a running back in college? Could he play some other stuff? There's always been some chatter with him, but I would expect him to kind of be that next guy at Carl Albert that just puts up some insane numbers.
Josh, are these kind of the two early candidates in that 27 class maybe that Oklahoma gets interested in, or do they have other guys?
Should make note, too, Jeremiah Tabor is 2028.
Oh, there you go.
Delijah Matthews is 2027, excuse me.
Oh, well then for Matthews then, Josh, was that somebody that they could be interested in?
It's somebody they absolutely could take an interest in, but I've got my eyes on like some guys like Wayne Shanks from Houston. That's a guy they offered. He camped last summer, and then they offered him coming out. Another guy that Jackson Stokes from California, Sierra Canyon, same school that produced
Bronny James.
See here, this is a perfect example, huh?
Didn't Bronny James go to Sierra Canyon?
Yeah.
Bronny James, but the
All those
offensive
guys
lineman that's already left Oklahoma, gone back to California.
Eugene Brooks.
Yeah.
Oh.
God, Lee. Sorry, Eugene. That's a bad one.
Mine's on
But
basketball.
I would say if there's one running back I was really watching in 27 for Oklahoma, it would be Landon Williams-Callis, the kid from Richmond Randall that just won state last year, beat South Oak Cliff in the state championship game. Like 5'7", 185, 190, but so explosive. I got a chance to watch him last year, and he is a super twitchy, that Darren Sproles, you make whatever comparison you want to the little powerful backs, but he is very much of that mold and is a guy that, OU's been on since very early on.
Very good. We will continue. I guess that's going to kind of wrap up everything in terms of Brent Venables football camp. Pretty good 4 or 5 days down in Norman for that. Moving forward, though, Josh, Elite 11 coming up this week. Obviously, a lot of eyeballs will be on Bo Bentley. I know that Steve Wiltfong dropped by the Crimson Quarter earlier on Monday and dropped some just kind of update knowledge on where things are at for Bo as he heads out to Los Angeles this weekend to participate. Jaden O'Neal, on the other hand, who was in Norman on Friday, he is in Tallahassee on Monday afternoon, taking in his official visit with Florida State. Just thoughts, concerns, criticisms as Bo Bentley heads out to Los Angeles for the Elite 11, and Jaden O'Neal currently on an official visit down in Tallahassee.
Guys, it's taken a long time to get to what we've been talking about for 3 or 4 months now, but it feels like maybe we're finally really close. Like both of them are going to end up kind of where we thought they would 3 months ago. And I still hate that I hate that Jaden O'Neal had to go through all this to get to where he is. I just still will continue to say I don't love the way that was handled, but it is what it is. And if Oklahoma can come out of this with Bo Bentley, which I kind of am starting to believe more and more that that's what's going to happen, and Jaden O'Neal can find a great spot to land like Florida State, maybe all's well that ends well. But it does feel like that is the direction this is kind of heading. Like that's just kind of my guess. Obviously Jaden was there on Friday. I didn't hear, like there was no talk of like, oh, this was like something's gone wrong, or that Florida State visit was on the books. Like that was happening anyway. It's not like he came out of OU unhappy and then set up a trip to Tallahassee or anything. So I still think things are progressing as they always were gonna, and maybe the next time we get together, guys, we'll actually just be able to talk about one quarterback, and it's kind of all finally settled.
Certainly things moving forward would be a lot more crystal clear if you could just get some resolution. And I'm talking about in terms of this 2026 class. And, I think all of three of our feelings, I don't want to speak for you guys, but just knowing that you have a quarterback in place is always a pretty good recipe for a really good class. Yeah, exactly. You could probably go either way with Jaden O'Neal or Bo Bentley, but certainly seems like, Ben Arbuckle, I don't want to put any words in anybody's mouth, but probably prefers Bo Bentley. It'll be interesting. We'll keep an eye on everything out with the Elite 11, though, coming out. And obviously, any notes that would come out of Jaden O'Neal's post-visit of Tallahassee. Last but not least, you put it on the Crimson Corner this morning, Josh, but our good friend Cooper Hackett making a return to Dorman early this week.
Yeah, Cooper's going to be back on Tuesday, just kind of, I think, spending some more time with Bill Bedenbaugh. I had heard when he took that Texas Tech trip, like they really turned his head. Like I think they were very impressive. I think I don't think I'm saying anything crazy. I think they'd put together a strong NIL package for him and impressed him. And again, I don't always want to make it sound like that with Texas Tech. If you're around Joey McGuire, you wouldn't mind playing for Joey McGuire. He's that kind of personality, like he's that kind of dude. At the same time, I think being back in Norman really refreshed a lot of the feelings that Cooper has. When I was out there, I know, again, the interview that got lost to time, we didn't get to do it. We didn't get to ever run that. But he talked about like just how much respect he has for Bill Bedenbaugh and his track record. And you could tell like it's almost kind of reverence, for what he thinks of Bill's ability to develop him as a player down the line. So, again, I think it's just a matter of Oklahoma kind of continuing to kind of reel him a little closer. Now, there's no decision coming on Tuesday. I don't want to give anybody the wrong impression, but I do think Oklahoma is doing a good job kind of putting themselves back in the driver's seat.
No doubt. Kind of taking advantage of, and not really a proximity because I know that Fort Gibson's quite a drive, but it is closer than Lubbock. And I think that anytime you can get a kid on campus, whether it be outside of an official visit, as an unofficial visitor, he's doing it on his own dime. It's never a bad thing to be bringing him back to campus, I guess, in story there. So we'll continue to cover that as well as the Oklahoma running back commitment today from Deven Walker. And that will be up on SoonerScoop.com shortly here after you have watched this program on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel. Plenty to come more as the season or the summer kind of leads into Oklahoma's next big recruiting weekend. And that's not too far away coming up this weekend. I'm sure we'll talk about it more on the SoonerScoop.com, on the webpage, as well as here on the recruiting report on the YouTube channels. For Josh and George, I'm Eddie. I'm all talked out. It's time to thunder. Bye-bye.